Good morning, Sunday morning. It's January 17th, and this is your Not So News Update. Starting us off, there was talk this week with Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon that had the following take regarding KKK and Nazi support for Trump. It goes, Cuomo says, right, and if they don't say, I don't agree with those people, I just like Trump's policies. Lemon goes, well, they get out of the crowd with him. Get out of the crowd with him. I wasn't in the crowd. I just voted for Trump. You're in the crowd who voted for Trump. If you voted for Trump, you voted for the person who the Klan supported. You voted for the person who Nazis support. You voted for the person who the alt-right supports. That's the crowd you are in. You voted for the person who incited the crowd to go to the Capitol and potentially take the lives of lawmakers, took the lives of police officers, took the lives of innocent lives who were there on the Capitol. This shows just the utter divide between mainstream journalism and the right and Trump supporters. They genuinely believe there's 75 million KKK Nazi white supremacists out there. And that has no comment on, the support that comes from minority communities for Trump. Trump received all-time highs from minority communities, and the reason why he did end up losing the election was purely from white male support that went towards Biden. This goes right in the face of what we also see through history of, support for the left. Just in this last election, we had Richard Spencer, who ended up endorsing Joe Biden. For anyone that doesn't know who Richard Spencer, and he literally fits all the categories that Don Lemon mentioned. I know there was a comedian, Ryan Long. He had a piece on YouTube a while back with a critique of radical. He does like a lot of critiques on radicalization on the left and the right, and he recently did a bit talking about the protest and how racist on the right completely agree with this rhetoric on the left. The issue that we see here is that Lemon's remarks literally feel like a parody of how the right saw the left back in 2016, saying that they're all the same thing. And this doesn't even go into the racism we see from the highest stances of individuals on the left. Just in this last election cycle, here are some remarks from Biden that got absolutely no critique. When I tell you what, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. You got the first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook man, in a reference to Obama. Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredible, diverse community with incredibly diverse attitudes about different things. In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I don't even I remember hearing about these comments being made, but they were purely from the right-wing media. I don't see CNN trying to do a critique on these remarks. He thinks it's fine to say that there's no intellectual diversity from African Americans. That's literally the definition of racism. To, just put an entire set of people in the same viewpoint because of the color of their skin. And no one critiques that whatsoever. Where was CNN saying that this is not the standard for how race should be looked at? So I guess I asked Don Lemon, why are you on the side of the KKK, of Nazis? Why are you on the side of white supremacists? These media oligarchs never take a second just to step back and look at the most obvious flaws in their logic. I literally heard his remarks and you came up with these pieces in less than 30 seconds. I don't know, maybe philosophy 101, where they go into, just basic logic flaws, needs to be a requirement for a journalism degree, just to avoid this obvious, mockery of journalism. This rhetoric of, they're all lumped together and taking the worst of a side and saying that stands for all of them. This is just further radicalizing the left and the right. I've been thinking lately, what would I expect the media to do if they genuinely wanted people to come together? I think they would be hosting people from the opposite side. I haven't seen CNN have an interview with Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley since their remarks in the Senate. That might be the standard for de-radicalizing people on both sides, that, at some opportunity, individuals who watch CNN have an opportunity to see what the actual argument is coming from the right. This standard of what's going on is just further radicalizing individuals on both sides. This same standard of just not reflecting on your own comments is further being done by Pelosi in the House. She recently made remarks on Twitter for her support for the Capitol Police and how they reacted to the riots. However, this just goes in the face of how she had the complete opposite remarks about the National Guard and police during the BLM protests. In regards to the Portland's use of the National Guard, unidentified stormtroopers, unmarked cars, kidnapping protesters, and causing severe injuries in response to graffiti. These are not the actions of a democratic republic. DHS Gov's actions in Portland undermine its mission. Trump and his stormtroopers must be stopped. But then with the Capitol riots, even during this dark time in the history of America, we find reasons for hope. It was my privilege today to personally thank members of the National Guard who are working to protect our nation's capital. Thank you for your commitment to our American democracy. There's been a consistent standard for when police force or military force or like National Guard use is good for these left-wing oligarchs. If you're hurting small business, the homes of everyday Americans, or a historical monument of someone who had character flaws, but not necessarily was held up to decent standards for what they did in American history, then attacking those and destroying those are all good. But if you attack their business, if you attack their home, if you attack their capital, their cathedral, their chambers, then it is bad. Anyone who claims that this is whataboutism shows the hypocrisy just straight up. There's a standard that we always had in this country that violence is bad and it's terrible and it should be stopped. The difference is right now you see people that will defend violence when it's done by their side but not the other. The difference with these oligarchs, though, is they have no problem using you, your body, your life, your business as a sacrifice to their religion. If you die for their protest, then that's fine. I didn't see any of these oligarchs, in the cities when the BLM protests were going on because they know that they would be held accountable by them. And this is why it's fine when they ask for military force to defend themselves, because the only thing they care about is their life, their house. They don't care about you. The same hypocrisy is now even being spread by AOC, who did some remarks on Facebook's involvement in the Capitol riots. This comes out after evidence has been obtained that's showing, along with Parler, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all had contained similar rhetoric for the violence for allowing conversation that led to the riots to be done on their sites. The irony of AOC's remarks, though, is that she thinks instead of those private businesses holding the standard for what should be said in a public square, she thinks she should. All of the tech companies are right now in a place that, they're reviewing their TOSs. They're reviewing how they handle violence. And I think the issue with what was going on with AWS's shutdown of Parler is that they're hosting other sites that allowed the exact same violent rhetoric to be allowed in the first place, and that's where you see such a protest of Amazon shutting down Parler is coming from. I think this all circles back to how these media pontiffs and political oligarchs act. They have no trouble attacking others, but they never just self-reflect. It's always on you, the listener, the commenter, that's the problem. You just have to do what they say. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I see these blatant problems, and I see these remarks and I have a moment of self-reflection, like, if I owned one of these tech companies, what would I do? The issue with what we're seeing, though, is that these people think they genuinely know what's best for you. I'm asking that all these media pontiffs and political oligarchs to step back, to maybe listen to constituents from the other side. I know AOC is in a very left-wing, she has a very left-wing constituency, but there are conservatives and Republicans in her district that maybe she should listen to. I don't know what type of outreach she does. I know really she's, been experimenting on Twitch, which, should be an insult to her constituencies, that she cares more about outreach to, the world and her own public image. She's started a store that sells merchandise that's, extremely expensive. You can get like a $70 sweater that says "Eat the Rich." But what has she actually done for her constituencies besides become a celebrity? The same thing that she ran on against. She ran on being, just a bartender. But what has she become? She's now the definition of what a celebrity is. She gets, thousands or millions of views, and all she does is promote hate and radicalization on the other side. Just asking for unity. I'm asking for consistency. This is your January 17th Not So News update. Have a good one.